In this video, we're going to take a look at the key terms for the growth and development unit for 7th grade. Please bear in mind, we're going to approach these in the most basic of ways. We don't want to get down too deep just yet. We want to just keep things very, very straightforward and very simple. In class, we'll spend more time getting more in depth. First two things we want to look at, number one is DNA. DNA is a material that transfers genetic characteristics in all life forms. We want to keep it about as simple as that for our purposes in this unit. It's a material that transfers all genetic characteristics in all life forms. And in each cell, there is found a chromosome. Chromosome is made up of DNA. It's where DNA is located in the cell. So if we think basic, and I like this graphic here, working smallest to largest, here you go from DNA to chromosome, kind of the opposite of the arrows, DNA to chromosome to nucleus to cell. Okay, so at the cellular level, we have nuclei, nucleus. In that is located chromosomes, and in chromosomes located DNA. Okay, number of chromosomes. There are 23 pair, each contributed by the mother and the father for a total of 46 chromosomes. 22 of these pairs look the same in both males and females. So if we were to look at a male and female pair of chromosomes, the first 22 would look the same. So there are 23 pair of chromosomes. Now, the significance of the 23rd chromosome is that it determines sex. If you look down in the bottom right of this, there is an X and a Y. Okay, females have two copies of the X chromosome, while males have an X and a Y. All right, so if you were to look at female DNA, and you're looking at the 23rd chromosome, you'd see two X's, and if it were male, it'd be X and Y. Okay, so again, 23 pair of chromosomes. The 23rd pair determines gender. Okay, so when we talk about we've talked about before about how you inherit different traits from your parents, okay, basically determining what kind of hair color, eye color you might have. The way we measure this is called a gene. Actually, it's a unit of heredity that is transferred from a parent to offspring and is held to determine some characteristic of the offspring. So at the most basic level, it is a trait characteristic that you receive from your parent, that a living being receives from. Okay, heredity refers to the passing out of traits from parents to their offspring. And parents can pass on numerous different traits. Things that determine the hair color and eye color of a person, to, in this case, whether or not a person will be more or less susceptible to a disease. It all comes from heredity. You're always going to get that from your parents. So let's talk about how that works specifically. There is a dominant trait. Okay, in genetics, a trait that will appear in the offspring of one of the parent, if one of the parent contributes it. So in this case, the dominant gene is brown eyes. Contributed to this particular person here was blue eyes and brown eyes from mom and dad. But because brown is the dominant gene, it will be the one that displays itself. Okay? So a dominant trait is one that will appear if a parent contributes it, dominant. Okay. Recessive trait are traits that can be carried in a person's genes without appearing. Okay, so in this particular case, the dad and mom both contributed the recessive gene of blue eyes, meaning the child had blue eyes. Again, in our last one, the dad contributed a dominant gene, and therefore the child had brown eyes. In this particular case, it was not contributed, and therefore the child had blue eyes. All right, so we're going to talk about the life cycle of a baby. So this is conception to birth. Conception to birth. All right, some key terms here: conception, fertilization. This occurs with the union of sperm to the ovum, or commonly referred to as the egg. This begins the process of life development. conception fertilization. Zygote is the result of fusion between the sperm and the egg. Zygote is formed by only one cell, and the cores of the egg and the sperm can be observed in its center. So basically, the best way to think of zygote is occurs for about 24 to 48 hours after fertilization, and it is just without getting into it too much, it is just the next step in the process of growth of a baby. The next one is embryo. It's an unborn human in the earliest stages of growth when its basic structures and systems are being formed. Okay, so during the embryonic phase, the most basic spine, brain, items like that are being developed within the embryo. After that, we get to the fetal phase, and this is usually we're talking about 2 months after conception or birth, and this is where the baby becomes more fully formed. If you look at this, the first 8 weeks all the way there on the left in the embryonic phase, by the time we get to week 40, we have something that looks much more like a baby. And during this time, lungs are developed, things that the baby will need to live on the outside of the womb. All right, jumping to another topic here, sexually transmitted infections. For our purposes in 7th grade, we're going to focus on the 3 kinds of STI. They are transmitted through sexual contact. The 3 categories are bacteria, viruses, and parasites. Bacteria, viruses, and parasites. This is the essential part for us. There are 3 types, as I said: parasitic, bacterial, and viral. We're going to talk more in depth about these in class. Parasitic are actually actual parasites. Bacterial is very much how you would take something you would get. You may take antibiotics for it. Bacterial and parasitic can be cured. Viral, on the other hand, can't. It can be treated, and the symptoms can be lessened, but it cannot be cured. The 2 best ways to prevent STIs: abstinence is the only one that's 100% effective. The other is the barrier method. Okay, boundaries. I'm interesting. Best way to think of this: mental, emotional, physical limits we establish to protect ourselves from being manipulated, used, or violated by others. Another way to think of this, and a really good way to get across what boundaries are real fast, is how close are you comfortable with somebody standing next to you? Some people really, when they're having a conversation with somebody, kind of want them arm's distance. Some people are comfortable with them standing right next to them. This is what we're talking about when we talk about boundaries. We'll get more in depth with class, but that's kind of a good way to get your essential thoughts going. So this has been the video for 7th grade terms. Thank you.